Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, the premier hockey podcast of your favorite team in the Bay Area. And the Sharks get crushed, steamrolled, just absolutely obliterated by the Colorado Avalanche. But we are going to focus on the positive and look at the path to Connor Bedard. So, all that and more on today's episode of Locked on Sharks.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm your host, JD Young, contributor at Fear the Fin, RIP, and San Jose Hockey Now. I want to thank you for making Locked on Sharks your first listen. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. You know, Locked on Sharks, we are part of the Locked on Network where we cover your team every day. And the Sharks has something that doesn't happen every day. They got crushed, steamrolled, however you want to describe it. It looked like a practice for majority of the game for the Avs, as it looked like they were just on a power play practice for most of the game, as they just absolutely dominate the Sharks 6-0. And we'll talk a little bit about the game, but we're here to talk about the future, about Connor Bedard, and just kind of the path for the Sharks towards Bedard. So we're going to look at the schedules for kind of the teams in the mix, what we kind of need to happen for the Sharks to have the best possible odds going into the draft lottery. But before we get into that, I do want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you guys by FanDuel. Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. Okay. Like I said, no, I'm not going to do a full. You don't care. If you didn't watch the game, the Sharks, I'm just going to talk about some of the funny stats that came out of this game. Because again, the Sharks got crushed in every possible way in this game. So we're just going to talk about the funny stats that came out of this game. The Sharks had two shots on goal in the first period. The Avalanche had 19 in that same amount of time. The Sharks, in all situations in the first period, had expected goal of 0.02. 0.02 expected goals for. In the entire game, all situations, the Sharks' expected goals for was 0.87. They couldn't even generate an expected goal, let alone a real goal in this game. The Avalanche had more goals than the Sharks had shots until about 2 minutes left in this game. It's absolutely insane. It looked like a team that, like the Avalanche. I mean, this is what happens when you have a Stanley Cup contender, the defending Stanley Cup champion, and a team that is just actively bad. This easily was the worst loss for the Sharks all season. Like you can point to 8-3 loss against the Caps and et cetera, et cetera. At least the Sharks look competent at moments, if not like decent at moments in those games. This was a complete, just absolute show. So I'm trying not to get yelled at here from the Sharks from moment one. Absolutely pure domination by the Colorado Avalanche. Just absolutely, yeah. The actual shot attempts ended up being 70-35 by the Avalanche all situations. Shots for all 5-on-5 was 75% of the shots for the Avs, 75.61 to 24.39%. Scoring chances, 30 scoring chances for the Avs. High danger chances, 9 for the Avs. Like, it's just absolutely insane. Just like two different sports, basically. So Kaapo Kähkönen got pulled. Tough night for him. Not much. I mean, he didn't have a chance in this game. I mean, you could have had Hasek and Patrick Waugh both back there, and there was nothing that the Sharks were going to be able to do in that situation. Just absolutely no help in front of him. Looked like a team that was playing the second night of back-to-back with a long travel and just an inferior opponent. But the other, I think the big thing is Erik Karlsson throwing his helmet on the ice, which was absolutely hilarious. I loved it. If you missed the game, he takes a high stick to the mouth, bleeding profusely, and the refs just don't call it. Like, he is just dripping blood out of his mouth. Refs don't call. After the game, he said he felt disrespected because they didn't even say hey, we missed out, or apologize. I think nope, nothing, just clear as day. Yeah, Erik Karlsson's bleeding from the face. I wonder how that happened. He's Ray Tuff, the athletic trainers, got the gauze on his mouth and stuff like that. Karlsson gets up because they got to go to the back to give him stitches or to try to seal it up, right? He takes off his helmet, chucks it on the ice, and then walks into the dressing room. Karlsson gets 2 minutes and then a 10-minute misconduct for that. Just absolutely king from our hero, Erik Karlsson. I love it. I thought it was great. It's not going to, even if they got the 4-minute power play, it wasn't going to matter, right? Maybe they score there, so the game's 6-1 type of situation. But just Erik Karlsson just being the king, throwing his so great. And then my favorite part was after he gets back in the game, there's a couple minutes left, right? Just stares down the ref after the puck stoppage, and just stares them down as they go to the face-off. So yeah, that was the Sharks game in a nutshell. There was a Sharks fan who went to the game in Colorado who tweeted at me, and sir, I salute you. I would have left. I probably wouldn't have gone. 1, 2. I get it. I mean, you only get a chance to see your beloved Sharks every once in a while, but I would have been heading out after the second period, heading home type of situation. So if you suck it out, you sir are braver than I am. So before we get into kind of the path for Bedard, talk about kind of the teams that are in the mix, realistically in the mix for being the number 1 spot going into the draft lottery, and looking at the schedule going forward for all these teams and kind of what the Sharks need. A bunch of losses. Do want to take a quick break, talk to you guys about our friends over at FanDuel. If you guys don't know by now, FanDuel, it's the best time right now to get into FanDuel. We're past the midway point of the NBA season. It's a perfect time to download the FanDuel app, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. I like the 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. Again, it's just super fun. You're rooting for points, and within the first 3 minutes if you won or not. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, so as I'm recording right now, I think the Ducks are losing. I didn't want to wait for the end of the Ducks game because I wanted to go to bed at a regular time-ish while I still can. Ducks are losing 4-1, so we're just going to assume that the Ducks are going to lose this game with less than 10 minutes left to go in the third period to the Kraken. So we kind of have a 4-pack of teams that are really kind of separated themselves in the stink. You have Columbus, who as of right now has 47 points. Chicago has 49 points. San Jose has 50. Anaheim has 50. Then there's a little gap. We have the Coyotes with 54 points. And then we have Montreal, Vancouver, 57. The Flyers and the Blues at 59. So out of all those teams, like this kind of group of four between Columbus, the Sharks, Chicago, and Anaheim have really kind of separated themselves. Arizona's still in the mix here a little bit, but they've been kind of playing a little bit better as of recently, even though they've got literally nobody out left on their roster. But I think Montreal, it's too many points for them to make up in too short of a time. So going to look at kind of the team strength of schedules going forward, which teams are, kind of games that you want to circle. Like this is a big game for this going forward. So of those teams over at Tankathon, they have like a strength of schedule. It kind of looks at the toughest opponents and the easiest opponents left. Chicago has the toughest schedule out of all of the kind of the four teams here. But it's pretty close. So Chicago is ranked 12th right now with the toughest schedule. They have 19 games left. Columbus is ranked 13th. They have 18 games left. The Sharks have 17 games left, and they're ranked 18th. And then Anaheim is ranked 26th with 19 games. So the Sharks actually have an advantage here because, one, they have less games played. So every game, right, is a chance for you to gain points. So here's where we're glad that the Sharks have played the most amount of games, right? And you never know, like we saw against Columbus, blowing a 4-goal lead. Absolutely brutal. And then losing in overtime to the Penguins, right? If you looked at this game, you would have thought, hey, this is a must-win game for the Penguins. I doubt Columbus gets a point here. They end up squeaking out a point. So let's start with Columbus. So looking at their schedule going forward, they have their kind of toughest matchups. So they still have a game against Boston. Very good. Game against the Devils. Game against the Leafs. Game against Vegas. 1 game against the Kings and 2 games against the Rangers. On the easy side, if that makes sense, they have 1 game against the Sharks. So that's a big game, right? That game right there, big game. That's coming up next week, I believe. Game against the Ducks, big game. Game against the Canadiens, game against the Flyers, game against the Blues, and game against the Caps. So, they need to start kind of getting some points here going forward. But kind of dig into, some of these middle tier games, right? I know, like I said, they have a game against Boston. Boston's going to be pretty close to start clinching stuff here soon. It's the end of March, so it's not like it'll be like 2 weeks left. Maybe they start resting some guys. I don't know. That team is super deep, right? But Blue Jackets, they have a big West Coast swing here, right? They're going to be playing the Sharks. They're going to be playing the Kings. They're going to be playing the Ducks, Vegas, and Washington. So you got to hope that they get at least 2 wins out of there to really kind of feel good about yourself, hopefully against the Sharks and against the Ducks. That Ducks game is a back-to-back right there type of situation. And then going down the stretch, right, they're not going to lose every game, but you got to look at, like, at the end of the season, 3rd game from the end, right? They're going to be playing the Flyers. The Flyers are going to be toast by then, same as them, right? That's hopefully a game right there. You can try to look at potentially as a steal. You have a weekend where you play the Panthers and the Sens. Both those teams are very up and down, right? Those are potential games right there. We can try to steal a point. A game against the Canadiens. So they have a couple opportunities here, but they got to make the most of them type of situation. Again, I don't see any of these teams like losing out, right? It's mathematically improbable. I'm not going to say impossible, mathematically improbable, especially since a lot of these teams are going to be playing each other to going forward. So those are kind of the big ones there. So your hope is that, again, right now it's a, what did I say? They have a 3-point lead on the Sharks right now. So Sharks got to kind of gain some ground on that. That's kind of their big one, right? Is to try to gain some ground on Columbus. So especially with their strength of schedule, but the Blues, Sharks, and Ducks, 3 out of the next 4. Good opportunities there. And then you got to try to maybe pick up a win or 2 here going forward. So let's talk about Chicago. So Chicago here going forward. So their strength of schedule, like I said, they have technically the toughest out of the 4 here. They have a game against the Bruins, a game against the Devils, a game against the Lightning, a game against the Stars, 1 against the Kraken, and 2 against the Wild. So, and then their easy games, quote unquote easy, they have a game against the Coyotes, 2 against Vancouver, 1 against the Flyers, 1 against the Blues, 1 against the Red Wings, and 1 against the Capitals. So, and they have 19 games in, so they have 2 more games to play than the Sharks. And they just beat the pants off Ottawa 5-0 the other night. So they started a little bit of a road stretch here. They played Detroit. Detroit's looked pretty bad, especially since that Ottawa series, and they were sellers at the deadline. There's hope there. You play Florida, Tampa, Boston. All those teams are either in the playoffs or fighting for a playoff spot. So you're expecting not much there. But then you got a little bit of hope here coming up. You play Nashville, who's been really bad, especially since the trade deadline. Arizona, a little bit friskier. Colorado, don't expect anything there, right? Washington, again, you never know night to night. Minnesota's been a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team, but I mean, Minnesota is good. But then you play down the stretch, you play Vancouver. This has been bad. Dallas is going to be fighting for playoffs, or almost solidified their playoff spot, but they're going to be jockeying for playoff position, right? You play the Blues again. You play the Devils, who might have locked things up. We pretty much know it's going to be Devils versus Rangers in the first round, so it might just be some positioning at this point. Calgary, who's fighting, but at this point, with 3 games left in the season, they might be done. Vancouver, who's going to be toast, and then Seattle, the last game of the season. You never know what those not the last game of the season. Sorry, I didn't scroll down far enough. So you have Seattle. It's going to be fighting for a spot there on that game. Minnesota is going to be fighting for a spot. Pittsburgh, who may be out of it by then. We don't know with Pittsburgh. Like that team is they almost lost to Columbus tonight, and the Flyers are going to be toast by the end of the season too. So I think the Blackhawks have a fair amount of opportunity to gain some points here. So that's the hope, right? Before we look at the Pacific Division, look at the Ducks and the Sharks and look at their schedules going forward and why it sets up very nicely for the Sharks. Let's take a quick break. Talk to you guys about our friends over at Built Bar. If you guys don't know about Built Bar, it's a delicious treat. The best tasting protein bar on the market, covered in 100% chocolate. What more could you ask for? You have to try them out. Like I said, each bar is covered in 100% real chocolate. They come in amazing flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and they're healthy for you with only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And if you're like me and you hate waiting for the mail, you could just have it out to Sam's Club or Walmart and grab a box. So at Walmart, go to the pharmacy section, grab a 4-bar box. They have cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs, or swing by Sam's Club, get a 13-bar box with their hit flavors, brownie batter and churro, or go to built.com and peruse all the flavors they have. I like the variety box. Comes a little bit of everything. So that way, if one day you're kind of feeling cookies and cream, one day you're feeling a little coconut, whatever it is, they've got you covered there, or you're trying to figure out which one is your favorite, built.com. So again, check out Built Bars at Sam's Club, Walmart, or built.com today. All right. Let us start with the Ducks. So the Ducks, like I said, their schedule here really lightens up at the end of the road. So they are the 26th easiest schedule. And the Ducks have actually been playing a lot better as of recently. So they have 18 games left after tonight. So again, I'm assuming that they lost it. They're going to lose this Kraken game. So they're tough games. They have one game against the Kings, one game left against Seattle, 2 against Colorado, 2 against Edmonton, and then 1 game against Winnipeg. They're easy games. 1 game against Columbus, 1 game against Arizona, 3 games against Vancouver, 1 game against the Blues, 3 games against Calgary, and 1 game against the Islanders. So a little bit more of the middle for them. But like I said, those kind of games there's I think there's some points to be had for Anaheim here. So looking forward. Second night, they're going to be playing so Wednesday night, they'll be playing out back-to-back against Vancouver. Sucks there, especially since they're about travel. But Seattle and Vancouver, not that bad of a travel. So then they play Calgary. Calgary's still fighting for a playoff spot. Then they're at home to Nashville. Okay. Again, Nashville, we've had a little bit of struggle bus recently. Islanders on a road trip here. They got a nice, huge homestand here. So they're going to be playing the Islanders, Columbus, Vancouver, Calgary, Winnipeg, St. Louis, Colorado. So in this homestand, you got to try to kind of rack up some points here. So if you can, Columbus, the Columbus game, you got to hope for a 3-point game. That is the hope, right? 3-point game in there. Hopefully with Columbus winning. Got to get some points against Nashville. Get some points against Vancouver. Okay. Get some points against the Blues. Potential there. Then they start on another little road trip through the Pacific Northwest of Seattle, Edmonton, Calgary. Hopefully you get one along the way there. Seattle's all those teams are fighting for Pacific divisions or Pacific spot or wildcard spot. Calgary, though, might start to trail off by there. Then you have Edmonton. And then your last road game is at Arizona. Nice and close. Then you play Colorado, Vancouver, LA. Vancouver's going to be done by then. LA, maybe they've already wrapped up their playoff spot. Again, that's what you're hoping for is these teams start wrapping up their playoff spots by then, and then they're kind of resting some guys or type of situation, so they don't really have much to play for. So the Ducks, like I said, they've been playing a little bit better recently. I think they could kind of work themselves out of, kind of solidify themselves in that 4-5 spot instead of being one of the top 3 spots, right? We don't want Connor Bedard to go to Anaheim. That's like out of all the outcomes, I think that's one of the worst ones, right? Having Zegras and Bedard playing together for the next 15 years sounds terrible to me. Do not want that. So, all right, let's end with the Sharks. So the Sharks schedule So like I said, they have 17 games left. They're ranked 18th in the strength of schedule. But listen to some of these teams they got to play. They got to play Vegas one more time. They got to play Seattle one more time. They're playing the Wild one more time. They have 2 more games against Colorado. We just saw what happened tonight against Colorado. 3 games against Edmonton. Edmonton's going to be fighting for a playoff spot, trying to solidify their playoff spot. And then 2 games against Winnipeg. I think we see Hellebuck in the next 2 games, no matter what, just because I don't think they want to have that repeat, right? And then the games where you kind of control your own fate. 1 game against Columbus, 1 game against the Yotes, 1 game against Vancouver, 1 game against the Blues, 2 against Calgary, and then 1 against the Islanders. The Islanders on their West Coast swing here. So let's kind of dig into it some more. So Sharks, I think they're pretty much done with the old back-to-backs, except for the very, very end of the season as they're on their road trip. So St. Louis game at St. Louis, last game of a road trip that's gone terrible for the most part. I guess, they did win the Winnipeg game, but yes. St. Louis, we'll see. Right. They've looked bad, but the Sharks have just looked pitiful lately. Minnesota needs the wins, right? Then you play Columbus. That's a big game right there. Columbus needs to come out and win that game. Playing Seattle. So then you start a stretch here of a bunch of teams who are fighting for their playoff spots. So ready? Seattle, Islanders, Edmonton, and the 3 big right there. You play Vancouver in Vancouver. You play at Calgary. They're going to be fighting for a playoff spot. You play Winnipeg at home. You play Vegas at home. The Sharks have played terribly at home. April 1st, you're in Arizona, and then you play 2 in a row versus Colorado at home, which is really weird. And then you play Edmonton, Winnipeg, Calgary, Edmonton to end the season. So, like, they could realistically, and even if they like win the Arizona game, like they could realistically go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 1 out of 8 in their last 10. Like, there's a lot of losses and on the end of the season for the Sharks. So, yes, I know they beat Winnipeg any night, anything could happen type of situation. But looking at those games, how many of those games are the Sharks going to be favored in? And there's not many. Realistically, they'll probably be favored in the game against Columbus because Columbus is on the road. It's a home game for the Sharks. And maybe Arizona, but I mean, like, the Sharks are going to be, underdogs basically in all of these games. So there's your path. So we're going to be continuing to root for Chicago, rooting hard for Columbus, rooting hard for the Ducks. Arizona, I didn't go through their schedule, but again, I think we're starting to kind of build a little bit of a separation between themselves. I'll just quickly go through kind of their strength of schedule here. So I think they're kind of so they're tough games. Just I won't go through the entire schedule, but they're tough games, right? They have 1 game against the Stars, 3 games against the Kraken, 1 game against the Wild, 3 games against Avalanche, 2 games against Edmonton, and 1 game against Winnipeg. Among their easy games, you got Sharks, Blackhawks, Ducks, 2 against Vancouver, 1 against Calgary, and 1 against Nashville. So, and then for some reason they've just kind of been playing better recently. So, even though they don't have anybody left to play, so that's kind of the path, right, to Bedard is who can lose the most games out of here. I still think the Sharks aren't going to lose every game from here on out. But if realistically, how many points do you expect them to get over the next 17 games? Like 7? Like realistically, that's going to put you at 57 points for this season. That is not a lot of points. So, even if all the loser games here, they get they average a point. 7 points, maybe, like realistically 7 points. I think that feels about right, especially with the way this team's been playing recently. So again, that puts you in the driver's seat. You want to be number 1. Yes, I know it's a lottery and there's a chance, but you have the greatest odds to win the lottery. And if you're number 1, the worst you can pick is 3rd overall. And that's if 2 teams jump you, which again, just looking at the odds, 2 teams to jump you would be absolutely catastrophic. But then still you're still getting Leo Karlsson or Mitchkov. So at number 3 overall. Yeah. So please continue to lose. If not, you're going to put yourself in great possibility to potentially draft Connor Bedard. So that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back. Another draft profile tomorrow. Josh Tessler joins to talk about Braden Yeager. Interesting prospect who I don't think the Sharks are going to be able to draft because I think they're going to be either drafting too high or they're going to be drafting, or he's going to be gone by the time the Sharks pick again. But we want to kind of cover all our bases in case the Sharks trade back, all that fun stuff. So Braden Yeager tomorrow. So make sure you guys follow along for that. Thank you guys for making Locked On Sharks your first listen. Now for your second listen, go check out the Game to Game NHL. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NHL with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game on Locked On NHL, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at MyFryHole, the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Listen wherever you get podcasts. Subscribe on YouTube. I'm really close to 1,600 subscribers. I think during the summer here, as we go towards the draft. We have a little bit more free time and more fun time as we finish up the slog of this season, but kind of getting a nice set of collectibles I'm going to maybe start giving away during some of the shows. So make sure you guys are subscribed on there. That way you guys know whenever maybe something like that might pop up. So yes, until tomorrow. Bye, friends.